2020 Rocky Mountain Slayer. C50, so the carbon version. 29er. I guess it's mid to high spec. It's spec quite well. It's spec really, really well. So before I get into it, this isn't a full review. This isn't a review of this bike. I wasn't prepared. So this is obviously a coil shop. This is a 400-pound spring, which gets me at 22 or 21 to 22% sag. So way too shallow in the sag. Not enough. Yeah, it's just too stiff for me. I can't get the ride height right. I have counted it to make it ride reasonably well, and I'll give you an idea of how that feels. But I can't give you an accurate assessment of this bike because I didn't climb with the sag right. I didn't descend with the sag right. I haven't been able to ride it how it's designed to be ridden. So that out of the way. Let's focus on the specs. Excuse me. Highlight of this bike, or highlights. SLX 4-piston brakes. So strong, they're so good. I'm assuming they're metal pads in here, I'm not sure, but I'd assume it's metal pads. Heaps and heaps of power. If you're heavy, you'll love them. If you're light, it'll take a while to get used to them. Minimal adjustment. You've got obviously the standard reach adjust, but nothing else. So that's fine. The tyres, spec'd with double down DHF max grip on the front, full-time party, and double down aggressor at the back, so my favourite rear tyre. Perfect spec for a bike, excellent. Comes tubeless. I don't know if it's came tubeless out of the shop, but I've obviously got it tubeless. Feels killer. Tyres are good. The wheels, I'm not too sure about these WTB STI 30s. They felt a little bit flexy, and I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't think they're great, but I didn't damage them, so that's a good thing. That is, all the spokes are tight. Everything feels good. That's not a highlight. Those wheels aren't a highlight. Back to your highlights. SLX shifter, SLX cassette, XT derailleur. Forgot what it's called then. So the XT derailleur, SLX, everything else. It's crisp. It is really, really smooth. Super. It's basically silent. There was only a little bit of noise. I think maybe there may be like a chipped tooth or a bent tooth or something. Every now and then you just hear it, like it'll grab it, and it's rare, but I do notice it. Outside of that, it's light under thumb. Outside of that little noise, it is crisp. It's perfect. I like this Shimano XT 12-speed stuff. I think they've done reasonably well. So be interesting to see how that progresses with the clutch mechanisms and all the nitty-gritty that I'm not so in favour with. So with this XT derailleur, the cable comes out quite on the piss, where it comes into the derailleur mounting bit, and it's always rubbing on the edge of the entry exit. So that would be long-term issue. It would create a little bit of friction long-term, I'd assume. The fork, killer. Lyric Select, so not the top model Lyric. It's mint. I've been between 1 and 2 tokens on this fork, so it's 170 Lyric. 160 Lyric feels absolutely sublime with no token. Absolutely sublime. 1 token, a little bit more choppy, but you can run a little deeper in the sag if that's what you're into. But no token, 15 to 20%. Oh, it's killer. This one, 1 token, 15%. Feels really, really good. 1 token at 20% almost feels a little bit soft. So 2 tokens at 20%, really good. Ever so slightly starting to get into choppy territory, but still good. Really, really good. So I'd be happy either way to run them 1 token or 2 tokens. It's not really detrimental at that point. 170 crank, so it's a big bike. Obviously, I'd never spec a bike bigger than 170. I've spoken about that a million times, but cranks are good. They feel a little bit flexy, to be honest. Race face, alloy cranks, a race face effect. I think they're a little bit flexy. I'm not sure, but I think maybe it's either that or there's a little bit of flex in the frame down the bottom there. Not too sure. So 1-up dropper post killer, obviously. Standard spec. This is a 180. Perfect amount of drop for most people. Unless you're getting real tall, you'd probably be on an extra large anyway, so no biggie. The weight, it's 16.4 kilos, as you see it. Double down tires. Built to shred. It's literally built to shred. Old mate put some Kona Wawa pedals on it. Now these pedals are killer. They're plastic Kona Wawas. They're the pins are like narrow threaded pin, so heaps of security there. There's no high spot in the middle where you feel you feel a bit of pressure underfoot after a long climb. There's none of that. It's a nice concave shape. They're killer. The Super Deluxe rear shock makes a little bit of noise when you give it a little bit of a car park test, but on trail the bike is silent. There's no cable rattle. There's nothing bouncing around. There's nothing making any. Even this little bird's nest at the front didn't make any noise. So I mean, you could make that a little better, but no biggie, no noise. Felt really good. Now I'm running this front end at 1090, 1095 high, so the top of my bar, which is too high generally. But the reason I'm having to run at that high is because the bottom bracket is super high. I'm only at 22% with this shock, so like I said, I didn't have the spring. I'd love to put a 350 spring on it and see where that gets me for sag, see how it climbs and see how it descends. So as it is here with 22% sag, everything open, everything normal, it was really efficient climber. I put down the same times as I did on the pole stamina, which I'd rode that set to descend, so in the right amount of sag, everything was good. No lockouts or nothing, and that was the most efficient bike I've had. 140mm rear travel, 160 front. This thing's 165, 170. Climb the same speed as that, but like I said, well oversprung. So no real comment about how it climbs in its optimal setup. I'm assuming a little bit less efficient than that, being 165 and a coil. It's not going to get faster. I'm assuming it's not going to get faster going softer. So I can't really speak to the climbing. You know what, this geometry flip chip was a godsend for this little test, because without that I'd still be in the neutral position, or I'd still be in the in the position it comes, and I'd still be way too high at the back and not been able to get the front up high enough, and just feeling all out of sorts. Like, it really felt out of sorts when I rode it in the neutral position. So to counter the fact that I'm so high, I've gone into the full slack, which is, so it goes the steepest, and then it goes neutral, and then it goes a little slacker, and then it goes slack. So I'm in the slack position all the way down, and that gave me an opportunity to sit the bike so it feels balanced. It's oversprung. It still didn't feel super choppy on any of these trails here. When I took it down 4 weeks, it was choppy. A little bit, some harder hits on that and whatnot, obviously. And when I rode it at Anstey's, it was definitely choppy in a couple of spots. But it wasn't too bad. It wasn't, it just sings praise for how supple a coil is off the top. So I messed around. I went minimal rotations on the spring for preload. Just couldn't get it any softer. It is what it is. So it's slayed how I had it, but that's not an accurate representation of how this bike rides, because it's way out of whack. It's way out of its usable range, or its optimal usable range. So yeah, sorry I couldn't be a little bit more informative. It is what it is. Next time I'm going to be a little bit more prepared. So if any of you guys out there have old 350 or 400 or 375 springs to suit a rock shock or a Fox shock, holler at me. I'll give you a little bit of chump change for the springs, and I'll start to collect, so that way next time I run into a bike that's coil sprung, I can set it up properly. I don't have to mess around, and I don't have to ride it compromised and have it's just not as enjoyable, to be honest. It's not as fulfilling for me. I really want to know. I want to get to the bottom of how a bike rides and find the nitty gritty and the little intricacies of how different bikes perform. And yeah, I've got to be prepared. So this kind of came out of nowhere, and I wasn't ready. And but you know, at the same time, super grateful for it. Shout out to you, dude, for lending me this bike. The owner of the bike, legend. I'm sure you're going to love it. You had a pretty dialed, to be honest. You had a pretty dialed as it was. Maybe for your weight, go a little heavier on the spring. We'll check the sag when I drop it back. But I'll get that fork dialed again for you. And yeah, all in all, it was a fun bike to ride. Even though it was all out of whack, it was still fun. I still went fast. I still had fun. I just couldn't, you know, there was situations where I would like to let it go, but I can't let it go because it'll beat me up. The back end will just chew me up, spit me out the front. So yeah, I would have liked to give it more beans, but like I said, it is what it is. It's cool. Thank you very much. And yeah, if you're interested in one, look at some other reviews, I guess. You know, people must be reviewing them. Heaps of people are riding them. They're a solid bike. The paint is killer. The finish is killer. Like I said, it rides silent. I would definitely... It comes with like a... I'm assuming it's factory protection. It's got some protective frame tape that looks like it really blends in with the bike. So I'm assuming it's from the factory, but I would go one step further and cover it with 3M tape. Keep this good looking paint looking killer. Cover the fork, cover the bike, just get it all rocking. So yeah, I can't really give an accurate assessment of it, but it was cool. It was fun to ride. So thank you very much, and stay tuned for the next one.